Hello, Elisha Medlin here with 5 Elements of Wholeness. And today I am so excited to do this mastermind with Allie White. Oh, so excited to have her on here. She is a serial entrepreneur. She began her entrepreneurial and coaching journey in 2007. She is a life coach, branding and business specialist, professional speaker, and award-winning photographer, which I got to be a part of. So that was so fun and exciting. Additionally, she is the creator of several coaching programs that have supported hundreds of women, both personally and professionally. Her years of study, research, and schooling are focused on educating and empowering women as they build home and business lives that they love. And as she puts it, she guides women in assessing and cultivating their superpowers. So I am so excited to have Allie on here today. And today she is going to talk about holding space and what it actually means. So Allie, do you want to kind of explain what that topic even means right now?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I just am so excited to be here with your group and with your tribe. And it's just an honor to be in this space. And as we were just getting ready to come on, it was so fun to be able to talk about how this is a space where we can just kind of talk super openly about really what the source of all light is and how we can talk about Christ and be really unleashed there. And that feels really yummy. So I just want to set a beautiful tone of gratitude right here and just say, I'm so honored to be with you guys and just be in this space, and also that we get to address this topic not so vaguely.
Yes.
To really like bring in the ultimate example of who holds space. Oh, that's just so rich to me. So I just, first of all, I'm so excited to be here. But when Elisha reached out to me, and I'm saying that correctly this time, right?
Yep.
I knew it was that hearty at the beginning. I just care about saying names the right way. So when she reached out and I heard that the topic for this month was communication, that just really, it struck my heart, because here's the deal, lovies, like we're all in 2020, right? All of us. And I think it's really valuable to know that anytime we hear information that's empowering, tools, solutions, it's important to remember that everybody sharing them is also required to use them. We're all in spaces and stages where we're learning, where we're growing. And but something I saw this most wonderful quote from Danielle Laporte yesterday, and she's just someone I really love her insights. But she basically said, if you're on the earth at this time, then you're someone meant to build the new world. And that just gave me chills, because right now we're in this most glorious state of growth, and the world is shifting really, really rapidly. And we have so many leaders, including every person listening to this call, who have some gift, some ability to create safety in this new world that we're navigating. And the world goes through so many different cleansing experiences, but so do our relationships. We go through lots of life cycles in our relationships. If you've ever watched a little child grow, whether you've had your own or you have just loved someone else's, or you just know what a child is and you've seen one from afar, we all come from different places, right? But as we watch little children grow, they go through life cycles, right? A newborn isn't a toddler, isn't a child, isn't a teenager. And so I think just acknowledging that expansion, which is such a beautiful thing, being able to live more into your life and experience more things, it means that you're going to go through some change. You're going to go through some difficulty at times. You're going to go through maybe even suffering. And so are the people you love. So how do we create environments, and more than that, a way of being that is so safe, where people can really just so authentically go through their path and go through their moment, that they just do it with greater ease, because they don't feel overwhelmed or pressured to be something else by us and how we're looking at them or how we're judging them. And how do we ourselves hold space for us? How do we learn to just say, this is the real moment I'm in. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to sink into it, experience it, so I can move through it. So that's really what I wanted to just bring some beautiful light to, and offer some support, and really kind of go into, because I think it's a phrase that we hear a lot right now. I'm holding space for you, or, I just need someone to hold space for me. Do we really understand some of the origins of what that literally looks like, and how it personally applies? I just think it's valuable in a time when there's so much happening so rapidly, to really come to this place that is essentially, I call it, it's almost like standing guard. It's like, I'm just going to stand guard here and just really trust life. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Got something in my eye, y'all.
Yeah. And as you're talking, you know, it reminds me of times when, you know, I've been required to hold space. And I think a huge amount of holding space is stay out of judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you recommend in that? Like in being able to stay out of judgment, to stay out of the judgment seat of even yourself or those around you. What do you teach on that? How do you help people to stay in that space of holding space without judgment, right?
Well, and that's one of the most critical things, especially because I'm a coach, okay? And so if I'm going to ethically practice, like let's just come back to the most basics of this. In my own practice and in my own education journey, the reality is if I cannot come to a place of neutral, I'm technically not capable of supporting clients. And when because I do coaching certifications and different things, the number one thing we work on for the first like several months is cleaning up your stories about judgment and other people. So I want to offer this, that be aware that we're each conditioned just because we live in different lives. I don't think that, you know, I think everybody's going through the same thing. Nobody's being completely true to themselves on earth. Nobody's come to that perfectly aligned place. That's life, right? Our job is to try to get close to the midline. But I mean, we're human. We're in a human skin suit. That's just not how it's going to go all the time. But there's a beautiful, one of my dear friends and a coach who I love too is Tiffany Peterson. One of my favorite things she talks about is just observation versus judgment. So I think first of all, being aware that having two eyes wide open at what things are is a totally appropriate thing. When we get to judgment, when we get out of observing the data and we just start to apply harsh judgments, things that ridicule or belittle either performance or, you know, what should have, would have, could have, we get into some dangerous places. And to me, the root of judgment is a lack of trust. And I think that's worth writing down, my friends. The root of judgment is a lack of trust. Either that the person in front of you, there's a lack of trust that they won't hurt you with how they're being different, or you're lacking trust in yourself that you're going to know how to navigate what you're observing or engaging with, or you don't trust that if they make this decision or if they're trying on their way of being, there's a lack of trust that will get them where they need to go. Or, you know, just put trust in there. Where 3 steps back is a really common principle I love to teach. When you're in the height of something and you kind of can't find your way through it and judgment is overwhelming you, fear is overwhelming you, those feelings don't feel fantastic. They sometimes appear to be a tool that keeps us safe, right? The brain thinks if I judge accordingly, I'll stay safe.
Yes.
But the reality is, as soon as we enter judgment, we've lost sight. We're in a biased state. We're actually not seeing everything. We've closed the gap.
Right. We become where we have those little blinders on, right? We come into that blinder. It's like blinding blame and blinding judgment and blinding just all of that shame, all of that there.
100%. Look at that blinding blame. I love that was so good. So exactly. I think that a great question is why, you know, what would you like to feel if you could consider what the opposite of judgment would be? It would be trust. It's like, I've got trust. I've got trust in what you're going through. I've got trust you're capable of doing what you're doing. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Anybody who's coached with me long term, there's kind of an inside joke. But I sneeze a lot when I'm on a hot topic. It's kind of a funny thing. I'm just shifting some energy. So that's just an energy good. Shift right there.
Yep. I'm sneezing, yawning.
Yawning.
All of those.
Yep. But I feel like things. No, it does. It just moves it. But to come back again to your question, how? I personally find that the ability to shift our more judgmental ways of being, I think that's a group effort. I think that being in conversations and being willing to be open and again, bringing that to the table. 2 eyes wide open, full disclosure. This is what I feel really judgmental about. This is what I feel really harsh about. And understanding again, like, awesome, who assigned you to that judgment? That's a great question. Since we can talk about the Savior, he's so clear in every book of scripture that I've read. He's so clear, like, hey, your job is to love, my job is to judge. We're really good. He's really clear there. So yeah, that's one thought, again, coming to neutral. And it's a deep job. Like when you get into some of the deeper works, and my husband's in the therapy field, And like, they won't release you as a psychotherapist to just go into the world if you cannot be neutral with every traveler who comes into your space. It's deep work. So I share that because, like, lovies, it's not easy to remove judgment. And a lot of it comes as just a form of protection.
Yeah.
But at the root, do you actually trust that people are capable of finding their way? And that people answer that question very differently across the board. Some people come back to a place of home and go, oh yeah, I do. Do you trust that God's big enough to take care of all his children, or just the ones that, like just a few? And you're here to help take care of all those other children, or watch for all their other little flaws. And then, because God doesn't have them. Those are some good questions I love to ask myself.
Oh, I love that. And, as I've gone through my journey of cleaning up judgment and criticism and all of those yucky feelings that create that space of unsafety and that space of protection, I've also found, as I've worked with my own clients, is that the number one thing to help them step out of judgment is forgiveness. And it's not forgiveness of the other person, it's forgiveness of themselves for taking over a job that wasn't theirs in the first place, and understanding that Christ is just as willing to forgive, if not more so, than you are on that aspect.
I would definitely say more so.
Yeah, more so.
I would go with, I'm gonna go with Jesus is a lot better at forgiving than I forgive. I mean, other people maybe have arrived there, but he's way better at forgiving me than I am at myself. So I'm like, show me how to do that again.
Exactly.
Like, show me how to forgive myself again. One more time.
Well, and I think that stepping, just like you're talking about, stepping into that space of trusting that Christ does forgive, is a huge permission giver to ourselves to be like, okay, if I can trust my Savior to forgive me, then I can give permission to myself to forgive, knowing that he's forgiving me. And I think that steps in, helps you step out of that judgment. Huge.
I think, yes, because doesn't it take us out of having to find the way?
Oh yeah.
It takes us out of the how, right? That is such a beautiful, perfect point, I think.
Yes.
And forgiveness of self, and that really we're not meant to follow our own model on this. There's already been a model set. Right. And I think that,
thank goodness.
Thank goodness. I don't think I should be in charge of the universal forgiveness model. Right? I just don't think.
Right there with you.
Different things. I'm assigned very different things. I like my assignments. Keep them coming. I'm not interested in being the savior for anybody. And I love that. I love what you're sharing, because that conversation too of trust with both ourselves and others. What a non-surprising thing that one of the ways we would each be seriously attacked, like I was going to say super stupendously, and like it couldn't even come out big enough. How fascinating to consider that in this amazing time in the world where women are being, I wrote about this, I think I posted about it last night, but we're in an amazing moment where really we're kind of being unveiled, if you will, and the world is able to see us at this totally different, beautiful level. And what a fascinating thing to see that it's easy for us to then go, but can I trust that I'll be okay out there? But can I trust that everything can be repaired? But do I really trust in restoration, redemption, right? All of those things. I love that, just totally sparked that thought in me, and I loved what you shared. But that's exactly what holding space is. Like, I trust. I trust the Savior's bigger than what I'm coming up against.
Exactly.
I trust that God is, I know who wins. So how can I take judgment or fear out of that space? I love that.
Yes. And so as we are, stepping into that space of holding space, how do you expand? Like, I mean, I teach this, but I want to get your insight on this. Like, how do you expand your capacity to hold the space, especially when there's a lot of trauma involved, especially when there's a lot of pain, a lot of change, a lot of, like, for example, for a divorce or for a loss of a child, or ailing spouse or an ailing parent, like those create a lot of trauma, even physical abuse, sexual abuse, all of that. Absolutely. There's so much of it. But how do we step into that space of expanding the capacity to hold the space of love and trust when there's all of that coming at you?
So I think that it's such a valuable question. Can we just acknowledge like all of the pain points that were addressed? Because if we've walked this, earth, there's a chance we've engaged with one, if not multiple, of the things that you just addressed, plus the countless others on the list, right?
Mm-hmm.
Forms of betrayal or forms of injury. There's a wonderful phrase that I like to use that was passed on to me from just a trusted, beloved, dear friend. And she talks about points of injury. And I really love that label for things, because we each come against moments that become points of injury, where, wow, on my path, there was just a point of injury. And then what can happen is we continue to go through life. Sometimes we bump up against things that brush against that point of injury. So maybe you have an encounter with someone and it doesn't go the way you wanted, or maybe you have to see a family member that really brings you a lot of anxiety or concern, or maybe, like you said, maybe you're engaging in watching someone else suffer or they're struggling. I find, now I might not be the most popular person, but I'm going to share because I think all of our perspectives on this matter, right? There's a lot of conversation in the world about what is being empathic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that being empathic, one of the most important conversations with this idea is it's also important to understand that sometimes what we experience that we classify as being empathic is also a boundary issue. We haven't drawn boundaries, and we can relate to people, and they're brushing against a point of injury that we too well understand in some form.
Mm-hmm.
And so it inflames within us. And we sometimes classify that, and I'm going to be really bold here, I think we sometimes absolutely misinterpret that as we're taking on someone else's energy.
Right.
I think that goes against agency. I personally think that actually contradicts agency. To take someone else's thing that doesn't belong to me, their path, that I can only ever have my path. So I want to speak to that, not discounting that can't exist, but I think it's also valuable to know it's a multifaceted thing. And so when we're holding space for someone and having capacity, one of the first things that comes to mind is, how are your boundaries? Very often holding space is a boundary issue. Because I think without realizing, when we're in a heightened emotional situation with someone, here's the deal: when our emotions go high, our intelligence goes low. We don't stay really cognitive and aware and clear-headed. Very few people are able to do that with true elegance. People who've really worked on it can do that sometimes in heightened situations. But I think it's valuable to be a little quicker to assume we don't have the best, like what response would be best. I go through a filing system of questions. Where would you have me serve here, God? What's my role here? What's my job here? We're not always assigned to hold certain levels of space for people sometimes. And so I think that's really valuable to know, like, what does it look like to hold space and also have a boundaried experience? Because offering someone space and capacity and building capacity within ourselves only works if we're boundaried. If we open up the boundaries of, actually, this doesn't work for me, but I'm going to compromise and do it anyway, we're in self-betrayal, and we start to drain out things that we need for other corners of our life. If we run away from a situation where we're just meant to hold space and love, sometimes we slip into self-betrayal because we turned away when all we were there to do is pour light. I want to share a little thought on kind of a more cognitive approach to this, but I just love looking at those. And I think so many people value just like, tell me some of the science behind, like, we're humans, right? We're in these human bodies. And so there's something called Rogerian theory. And Rogerian theory essentially teaches us that when an individual is able to come into a space where they can just be exactly as they are, nobody's there to fix them. It's not that anybody else in the space comes down to their level. Let's say somebody comes in with chaos, right? And they're just in chaos, or they're in anger, or they're in whatever. It's not that we match them, but we let them kind of do their thing. Like, hey, that must be really how you feel right now. Wow, you're angry. Even if they're lashing at me, it's like, wow, you must be really angry. You're even lashing out at other people. What does it look like for us to build fortification so big? And again, this is kind of a level 10 conversation of doing deep work, detaching from other people's behavior, recognizing other people's behavior is always their own. But what this beautiful model teaches, and I've seen it so many times in personal life and in practice, and I'm sure you've seen it at many levels in your own practice, Elisha. But when we just hold a space for someone to be right where they are, like, wow, I believe you. I believe you. I believe that it's this severe. when they come into a space where they're not required to be different to be acceptable, they self-correct.
Yes.
They
Validation,
self-correct.
huge amounts of validation.
Yeah.
Does that for 'em.
And it's not even, and I think it's also not even like it's sort of, I have space for you to be exactly like that. I'm going to be boundaried. You don't get to be like abusive to me, but I have space that if that's where you need to be, you can be there. You might not get to be close to me while you're being this way, but I
Right.
have space that you can be there. And I think it's just beautiful. But it again, they self-correct because they were believed, because they no longer had to go try to find a door where someone believed they were in as much pain as they were. And I think that's, to me, what holding space is. I'm not required
I
to go
love
into the
that.
pain with them. It's
Yeah.
just, how can I just believe you in your
And I
pain?
love
I
that.
believe your pain.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of, you know, from my experience and what I've seen from people that I work with, and I'm sure you can say the same thing, is that a lot of the reason why people act the way they do is they have so much inner child hurt because they didn't get heard. They didn't get validated. They didn't get believed. And so they're still reenacting that even in their adult lives. And so they come at you going, I'm going to force you to believe me because I have a voice. But when we can just sit back and hold that space and say, yeah, you do. And we love you for it. And they do. I see it all the time. They like go, oh, like it's okay.
You believe
It's okay to
Allie.
be here. Yeah. And I'm getting goosebumps. Like, it's so true because it's just beautiful. Like, and I see it with my children too. And I'm sure you see it with your kids, you know, when 100%. They come home from school and they're just like, right, from the whole day. And you're just like, wow, you had a hard day. Like immediately it dissolves all of that. Like, I have to prove, Mom, I did this, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, wow, Mom believes me. Okay. Yes. And what that does for them is that opens up that conduit of trust.
Completely.
And
I think it shows them that not only can they trust Mom, but they create greater ties to trusting life. Exactly. That's what's beautiful. Like, can you actually trust in life? Because here's the deal. Life is either on your side or it's after you. Right. It's one or it's the other. Okay. Yes. Life is either on your side wanting you to win, or it's set up to try to trip you up and cause you pain and all those things. And I don't believe that that's like, no. I know who I'm created by, you know, like we know what we're creations of. And this world, while definitely tricky to navigate, is set up for our good. It is set up for us to win. Yes. And so that space, I amen to inner child work. And I think one of the other piece of that, and just like you're saying, you know, when we have a child who comes to us and says, this hurts, there are a lot of thoughts, and I'm seeing this die away more and more with different generations, because we're seeing the truly damaging effect it has when a child tells you they're in pain. You're like, oh, you're fine, toughen up. You immediately tell them their pain is not valid. I mean, and it's so toxic to the brain, because they're like, but I am in pain, but I'm not supposed to be in pain. And so then we have adults who are like, I don't know what to do with pain.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And I'm so one of those that have been in the process of recovering from that. So yes.
Of course. You know, and we all learn it.
Yes.
But I think a valuable thing here. So let's look at, if we're going to do inner child work, which is where we take this concept of holding space and we bring it more into a self-application model, rather than how can I trust that the people who are suffering in front of me that I love and care for, how can I just hand them to Christ and just hold space and say, like, well, how can I serve you? What do you need from me? Rather than like, how do I fix it? Like, how can I just serve? What do you need right now? Do you think? Okay, let's go into self-application. When you do any inner child work, something that I think is valuable to know is that it's important to be if you're going to go do the parenting you didn't get, be a really good parent. Sometimes we overindulge, or we go to this really crazy place where it's like, I'm just going to give myself everything I needed. Well, hold on. Be a boundaried, good parent to that inner child work. And I think that sometimes we just don't realize that we actually let the overindulgent teenager version of ourselves go do the inner parent work. Like, hey, tend to that child, right? And so we go to this like, whoa, I went from one to like this other crazy extreme.
Right.
And so I think that can be a really valuable, how do you hold space when you're in pain, when you're doing self-evaluation type work? it might be foreign to your system to just be in pain. I'm hurting. I'm sad. I'm embarrassed. I'm angry. I'm lonely. You know, and sometimes just being there, that's holding space. 2 eyes wide open. This is exactly what I feel right now. Right. And I think that it's important to understand. I had this conversation with someone really powerful just yesterday about when I allow myself to feel things, there can be a fear of if I shed light, you know, but if I bring it up, then it becomes more real. It's like baby cakes, it's already real. When you keep things in the dark, they fester. When you shine light on them, they have the opportunity to disappear. Light, right? When you put your focus, and because you're light, you're just taking Christ and saying, Christ, I want you to look at my sadness and I want you to take care of it for me. Done. That's how we then are co-creating with God.
Yes.
Through our pain. But if it's like, no, it's not real. No, it's not there. Like, I think everything's fine, but there's like something gnawing on us. It's like, I just don't see it.
I'm going to pretend I don't feel that. It's all good.
Yeah.
I'm going to stuff it back under that rug. Right.
I can see you're not ready to go there. And I think that's a valuable thing too. What if we're just not ready to go there? What if the people we love really aren't in a place where they have capacity? Can we be okay with that? Can we trust if they don't have it today, they'll have it eventually. If I don't have it today, I'll have it eventually. I think that that's one of the most beautiful gifts we can extend to self or others, is knowing that there's no force in healing. Healing is not a forced process. Healing happens when healing happens.
Exactly.
And are you just willing to sort of be like, okay, I trust that healing will come.
Yes.
So there's some thoughts on kind of that more self-application type look and inner child work and not inner teenager, parenting.
Well, I might need to do the inner teenager too, but
no, meaning not letting like your inner teenager take over the parenting process. Oh no, the teenagers need lots of support too. Every version.
Yes, and I love that because it's so true. I mean, as I have gone along my journey, that whole concept of holding space. In fact, I remember the very first time that expression was given to me. I'm a very literal person, and I've learned how to like step out of it a little bit more, and I've become more creative. But man, when I was first on my journey, I was very like black and white, right? So somebody says, I'm holding the space for you. I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, how can you hold my space?
What you're talking about. How do you hold air?
Like, exactly. Yeah. It was just like, you are weird. I don't understand that. So, but the fact of the matter is as we have learned how I have learned how to move through that and learn how to step out of that black and white, you know, that this way or that way kind of mentality. And I've worked with my other clients on this. The one thing that I do find that shows up a lot in that holding space is understanding that the holding space isn't that you're holding everything. Like, it's not all on your shoulders. Yeah. It's that you are allowing the other person their journey without interference of your own personal opinions or judgments and all that. Yeah. But it's that it's working with them on how to not take it all upon their shoulders and be like, okay, I'm going to do this for you. You know, I'm going to carry this. But versus, here, I'll hold your hand and let's do this together. Have you seen that with your clients as well?
So a visual I like to offer is it's not like you're an event coordinator. It's more like you're standing vigil with a candle. Okay, you're not there with the earpiece being like, I'm going to watch for everything while you go through this, and I'm just going to make sure nobody comes up to you, and I've got my checklist, you know, because we can go into sort of this stir crazy, over analyzing, over involving ourselves, quite frankly. And just like we talked about at the beginning, learning how to be an individual who can become neutral. Why is it so important? Because without realizing it, let me say this, why is it so important? Because without realizing that we can slip into what's classified as transference, you might know it as projection, where we take what we're suffering with and then we bring it into their space, or we bring in our fear about what they're going through and we put it on them. And nobody wants to do that. Like, if you see somebody like drowning, you don't exactly want to be like, here, will you hold my ducks really quick? Like, sure, let me hold your books and try to swim. You know, we don't want to drown the people we love with our own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do love the idea of what would it look like for you to hold vigil? What would it look like for you to represent light for them? What they need is light. What they need to see modeled is love. Holding space means I have room in my heart for you to be where you're at. Doesn't even mean we necessarily do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But to hold space is like, I have room for you to be where you are. I can have trust and space for you to be exactly where you are. Tell me about where you are. I find that being curious in these moments is going to pay you back in big, beautiful ways. And so, how do you just remain curious about others in this space? Like, tell me what you're going through. Tell me how you are. And again, that neutrality of, oh, I recall a time when I was really suffering like this. I think we've all been in pain enough to know that sometimes that's one of the least effective things someone can do is come in and share. Okay, I'm glad you've been in pain. Thank you for telling me. And this isn't to like, no judgment. Everybody's doing the best they know how. And if they try to come up and offer light and love in some way by relating, okay, that's the very best they knew how. But I find, especially as women, first of all, how can any women listening to this relate to the idea or the reality that they've taken on something that was too much for their system, right? Or taken on something that wasn't theirs.
Mm-hmm.
How did it end? Every single time it ended in some form or process of you having to untangle yourself from it. And so I think it comes back to, again, this conversation of boundaries. Our boundary is not to fix. Our boundary is not to save. Our assignment is love.
Yes.
Love can look like, I'm here and I just see you're in pain and I love you. Love can look like, can I serve you in some capacity? Love sometimes looks like just showing up and serving, right? But that holding a space. And there are so many women right now, and this is what I know, there's so many women even right now listening to this, and like 2020, can we look at this? It's telling women, oh, you need to go hunt for basic necessities for your family. And now you need to become homeschool parents if you weren't already. And you need to you can't have faith or trust in your immune system or in the government or in your neighbor or in anything. Women are going through a lot right now. It's not to say men aren't, but women are going through a lot. And it can feel like so much on your shoulders, sweethearts. And I'm just going to invite you to maybe do a really beautiful level of personal inventory and ask, what's mine? What's not? Where do I need to return some things? Where have I taken over? And there's not a fast and easy answer for that. But again, boundaried, loved, your job is to hold vigil, not fix. Everybody, if you're on earth right now, it's because you're built to help create the new world, right? Just coming back to that beautiful truth that I believe is universal. So there's a thought for those who are carrying sort of this platter.
Trying to make everybody, it's those pleasing patterns, I think, that we often step into of, trying to make everybody happy because everything's so in disaccord right now. I've noticed that showing up a lot. It's like, okay, I have to take and balance what the world has created imbalance in. And now I'm feeling out of balance. How do I fix this? Like, where do I?
Yeah.
Here, I'll take on yourself.
And how can we trust that not only are we capable of finding our way, but part of it is we're forgetting to do our own work.
Yes.
We're forgetting to do our own work because we confuse holding space with going in and fixing people's lives, or like you said, being responsible or feeling at some level responsible for other people to find joy, happiness, or their way through life. Our job is to model. Like, show, don't tell is maybe one of my favorite things I tell anybody who's working on big projects or changing their lives or doing things. Show, don't tell, model it, represent it. And trust that if people appreciate your model and example, they'll find theirs, because their model and example won't look like yours. But I think it's a beautiful thing to just kind of remove some of the responsibility, the pseudo responsibility. It's not even your responsibility, right? Where are you operating in counterfeit responsibilities? That might be a really valuable question to do some self-reflection.
And I love that. And just to go back a little bit to where you were talking before, that whole step, taking a moment, even getting a notebook out and journaling and saying, okay, what is mine? What is others? What is God's? And where am I in this? Am I in everybody's business? Am I trying to go in and save people and take over God's job? Am I over here trying to fix my friend because they're in pain and not turning it over to God? So I love that, those columns, because it helps us to be more visual with what's going on the inside. Instead of trying to like figure it all out inside of our head, we can put it on paper and get rid of some of that headspace that's being taken up with all of this.
Yep.
What do I do? You know,
and here and
on paper.
Yeah. And here we have this powerhouse coach, right? You're modeling like just so perfectly what I think we all need reminders of, because like we need these reminders. It's one thing to discuss this, but if you're like, okay, how do I get out of it? You do a brain exercise like that. Like you actually do something with the knowledge. And it might seem so simple. Sometimes we want something shinier than go get a piece of paper and a pen. But it's like, no, honey, you're digging through the dirt for all these things. This is what you're looking for. Your brain doesn't know where else to put this. We can keep it abstract in conversation, but then when you actually go and you give yourself, no, I'm going to like do something about this awareness. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to like study it. I'm going to study what, you know, where this is at. So I just love that application, that level of application, because we're talking about a principle. Would you like an application? So what's something I can do? You can apply this tool.
Yes, write it down.
There, do something. And then how do you put that in your awareness? Wow, I make a commitment. I'm going to make a commitment to creating more awareness around the fact that I step in these areas that it really, you know, I'm not actually staying curious. I'm more going into like meddling and taking over. So I love shop talk where what tools can we put on your plate, Lovey, so that you're not getting lost? Because if you're in someone else's work, you're not in yours. There is it's black and white. That one's pretty black and white. And it's really easy for us to be very overwhelmed by what we know we get to work on. And it's so much easier to go. Like, have you ever had an easier time like cleaning someone else's house than your own? You go and do service, you're like, man, I have all the energy and I can go and I can just pick up all their stuff. When you come to your dishes, you're like, where's my little fairy? Little fairy. We'll do my dishes. You know, sometimes it's easier to do the other person's work.
It is, you know, just that analogy is kind of funny that you brought that up. I used to own my own cleaning business.
Right. And I grew up with my mom. Right. Yeah, girl.
So
girl.
I would go to people's houses. I spend all day, right? All day cleaning. And then I come home and I went to school full time, and I have 4 little ones at the time. And I was still in charge of dinner, still in charge of cleaning, still in charge of laundry, still in charge. And I'm like, I don't like this. Can somebody come do this for me?
Cleaning lady. Like, I'm a cleaning lady. What do you do? I'm a cleaning lady. But yeah, it's real different on the other side of the coin.
It's so true. And, you know, even as coaches, and I'm sure you found this too, is, you know, we go through our own crap too. Like, there's stuff that shows up big. And in fact, I was just talking to my girlfriend the other day, and I was like, sometimes I really don't like having big intentions. I don't like that I like to make big intentions, because Heavenly Father shows up so big for me, and I'm just like, really? That means I gotta change. Oh.
Yeah. Expansion can be a bit of a beast at times, right? We crave it, but it's we don't graduate humanity.
No, this is an onward process forever. And the reason why I bring that up is because I got to take that time of this really big intention that I have of cleaning up and changing. And I got to call my tribe and be like, okay, help me. Like, this is so big. What do I do? And they were able to just hold the space for me so that I could see, you know, I could take that piece of paper and I could write it while they're holding that space for me. So I didn't go into shame and discouragement and fear because of all the things that was showing up. And I think that is what's so powerful about learning how to not only hold the space for ourselves, but for the people around us, by teaming up with our tribe, by showing up for them, serving them like you're talking about, and saying, hey, my friend, what can I do for you? Like, how can I serve you today? Because we aren't mind readers, right? We don't know what people want.
Yeah.
And I think giving ourselves permission to be okay with allowing people to serve us is another part of holding that space.
Amen. Man, amen on a Wednesday. Like that is, amen. Amen. I
So
think,
true.
because I think that we sometimes forget that give and receive, they are equal sisters. And the
Mhm.
only way give truly flows is if receive is also fully activated. If we're incapable of receiving, it's just an interesting decoy. Let me call it a decoy. I think we get very, very distracted and deceived, right? Those are two huge words that I think are worth writing down, because I think that they're two of the primary ways that we're being worked on right now. We're being very distracted from our work. We're not in creation conversations. We're in all these, like, I need to just protect myself in all these ways from the world. And 2020 brought all these things. And I found so many individuals stepping out of creation conversations. I'm like, don't step out of your creation conversations. We're all still growing. Guess what? Life moved on. Things have been restored back to normal. Some are not. Hey, but the world didn't stop turning, even though it felt like it, right? In some ways, and to some people. But I think that this growth opportunity we have to come into expansion and to lean all the way into things that we've never experienced before, and say, wow, like I really, yeah, I'm with you in that. Sometimes I do question, why do I ask for epic? Like I said to my husband, probably 2 months ago, I was like, we picked epic. At the beginning of this whole journey, we obviously picked epic. Epic comes with adventure.
I'm right there too. Yeah.
Epic comes with adventures, dear. What did we do? Why are we asking for epic?
What was I thinking?
What was I thinking? But I think that one of the other primary applications right now that's needed, so that we don't get deceived into going over and trying on this solo journey. Boy, because let's look at it, like isolation as a tool is being used in such terrifying ways. And I also wonder if perhaps we were not stilled and put in these positions so that we could activate at greater levels the skill. And let me tell you, it's a master level skill. It is something that leaders understand how to do, is saying, I need help. I need support. I'm not sure how I'll go through this. Whether that's calling on prayer warriors in your world who will literally call down prayer and heaven's support for you, or people who will actually come into your physical space and do things, or people who will literally check on you and offer you spaces to process. It is going to be one of the biggest decoys. Like, do it on your own. You're okay. Don't burden people.
You
Leaders
can do
don't
it
need
by
other
yourself.
people.
You're just bugging people if you ask them to help you.
My gosh, you're a burden. I think one of my favorite things that I ever learned that I heard from you, and it's just stuck in my brain so deeply, Elisha, is when we did your beautiful photo shoot and you talked about, and I hope it's okay that I share this.
Yeah, go for it.
It was just spectacular to hear you talk about coming into a space of just saying, it's okay for me to take up space in the world. It's okay for me to take up space. And sweethearts, that's what I'd say to anyone listening within the sound of our voices. Please take up your space. Please take up space. Please let people come in. There are people who want you to win. There are people who want to win really badly. And that doesn't take away from the fact that they also want you to win.
Yes.
Like they're interested in everybody getting to their place, because you can't come to where it is that I win. And I can't go to where it is you would win. Like we're on individual paths, right? But I don't know one beautiful enterprise that I've ever either been a part of or just partaken of out in the world that wasn't a team effort. Leaders get to the top because they can lean on others too.
Exactly.
And so I love this concept of, if you want to get far and you want to get fast, there used to be a saying that's like, if you want to go far, go alone. If you want to go, I don't know, if you want to go far, go with others. If you want to go fast, go alone, or something. Basically, it's all bull to me. Like, that's why I can't remember it completely. I think if you want to go far and fast, you go with others.
Yes.
You don't run by yourself.
No.
But wolves aren't lone. Terrible analogy, right? As cliche as that may sound. Wolves hunt in packs. Always. The lone wolf is like crazy. They have rabies and they're going to die or something. Right? They don't, the lone wolf doesn't even exist in a healthy model. So.
Yes. And that's so true. And I think maybe not thinking isn't the right word, because it's the truth. The truth is that as we step out of that lone wolf mindset of that, I got to do this by myself or it's not going to count, is that is such a huge deception and so much counterfeit that keeps us from being able to step into that holding the space. Because if we hold the space for somebody else, when we're in that mindset and we try to hold that, we can't, because all we can see is competition. All we can see is, oh, if they get over this, then that means that I'm going to be even further behind and they're going to be ahead, and blah, blah, blah. And oh my gosh, it becomes so dirty and yucky and colluded and just, and it's interesting because I used to live in that world a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
And I didn't trust
it's relatable. Women. Yeah.
Trusting women, all I saw women were backstabbers and weak. And that was a really, when I was given the opportunity to trust a woman, that took every ounce of my being to even go even a toe into that space, right? But what was so amazing is this woman held that space for me to inch my way further and further into that space of like, oh, it's okay, like women are good, I'm a woman, that means I'm good. Like it was so big, right? And then that's where the, you know, you get to exist in your space and you get to take up space and you get to allow other people to allow you to take up space.
Yeah, amen.
And it's okay.
And I think it's, do we really have the ability, and are we interested in operating as individuals who also have space for people to be very imperfect?
Yes.
Like, let's lean into that conversation, because I think sometimes this can be, if it's all a bed of roses, then yeah. But guess what? We're all going to operate kind of clunky at times. We're going to bump into the walls. We're going to do the things wrong. We're going to have the heightened moments. We're going to be human. And we're going to do some things in a really messy manner. And sometimes we'll do that unknowingly. And sometimes, for darn sakes, we like get into, self-sabotage. And so we mess it up and we don't know why. I saw a video of a little girl who was she's probably 1, maybe 18 months. And she's trying to put a straw into a cup. Her mom has given her a cup in this straw. She's trying, and she only tries for like probably 4 seconds. And all of a sudden she just like freaks out and throws it down. It is one of the funniest. She just goes into this little fit, and it's just darling and hilarious. She's like, whatever, I can't get, and it's the most relatable thing, this little child model for each of us as adults. Just being like, okay, trying to get whatever. It doesn't work. It's broken. Like
stupid thing.
But I think that sometimes we're messy, and sometimes the people in our life are too. And I want to just, let me paint a picture of what this could actually look like. Let's say you're engaging in a conversation with someone, and it's not one of the easy conversations, right? And maybe you've triggered them, or they've triggered you, or it's been a mutual triggering, or whatever, and some things have happened, or maybe you didn't say the thing perfectly. What could it look like for you to be in such a space where you can hold space for not only their imperfections, but your own, where there's not shame, where it's not, I'm so bad, I should have known. Boy, is that going to be one of the greatest things that'll come at women. If you will stop, don't, there's such cliches around the should conversation, but it's really common, right? I should have known how not to say that, or why did I do that, blah, blah, blah. But can you hold space for having it look like, I care enough about you, like literally saying to the person, I care enough about you, and I care enough about this relationship that I would love to work this out. I want to find a way through this. I'm going to do things really imperfectly. And if there's something I've done, can you please point that out? I care enough about this relationship that I care about cleaning up my part. And if there's something that I did that hurt you, please let me know that, because I would never intend to, but I care about you enough, and I care about this relationship enough. There's something so beautiful in holding space enough, having enough space for yourself that you can also be really imperfect. That then you go around just cleaning up your messes. You kind of have nothing about it. Yes. And it's really beautiful. Like, right? Like, and that can exist. I wanted to share a literal example of like, what can it look like? That can exist. You don't get to control if other people want to engage with you there, but at least, you showed up as that kind of person, if that matters to you. And so I think that's another valuable thing to insert into a way of being. What would my way of being look like if I had space for myself and others to be imperfect? It'd look like I'd clean up the stuff that wasn't working. It would look, I would let other people clean up the messes with me too. Yes, so when an apology comes, or an I'm sorry comes, you receive it.
Powerful.
And you don't hold the pain in your pocket.
Yes, exactly. So I have another question for you before we end up and wrap up here. And for some people this may be obvious, other people it's a valid question. And that question is why? Like, what would be the point of even stepping into that capacity to hold the space? What is the benefit from doing it versus the consequences of not doing it?
And I love that you said, there's going to be a spectrum, right? There are some people who see this as like, well, I can see so clearly what that would do for my life. And then there are others who are hearing this concept, and I would imagine going through some levels of maybe, like, to be totally honest, the most extreme thing I think people might feel and experience here is fear. Because what we're inviting people to do here is let go. We're inviting people to let go of a really big level of control.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at the price of control. Let's look at the cost. Individuals who don't understand how to come into a space where they truly learn how to let others live their journey, I would guess they have a pretty strong history of having relationships go sour, not work out, stay in turmoil pretty often. And what's a fascinating thing is if I engage and encounter someone who says, this always happens in my relationship, not everybody's ready to hear that, okay, so this is happening to you. You should know this doesn't happen to everyone. So you're the common denominator. Let's go ahead and look at that. That's a really tender self-awareness kind of conversation that not everybody's ready for. But the reality is, when we're incapable of coming to a place where we can be good to ourselves, where we can hold space for ourselves and we give ourselves permission to be flawed, to be learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think sometimes we look at mistakes as problems and like, I made a mistake, rather than I learned something really valuable there. Wow, I learned a lesson. I was in the middle of a lesson. And so I didn't get it perfectly the first time. What we can look at is, first of all, cost. It's a really unnecessarily expensive to live in control. Okay. And so let's look at what it's cost you up to this point to not relinquish and to judge or to try to fix. It's probably cost you some things. And so I'd say that the beautiful price and the beautiful reward for a life spent learning to truly experience the art of compassionate living, which is we're all doing our best. Like, I really believe that. You're going to see an increase in connection. The relationships that matter most to you, people will feel safer around you, and you'll feel safer with them, because respect has just increased so drastically and trust has increased. Therefore, we're going to start behaving better. We're going to start acting more kindly. We're going to start growing. There is very sweet reward, especially in the form of personal connection, that is a result of learning how to be an incredibly safe place for other people to land, and also being safe as an individual, because people can read that. They can read if you're terrible to yourself, and it puts off an energy to, I mean, literally our receptors. Like, we literally smell the pheromones of someone who's in fear. And I don't think we always remember that, right? And so I think the price is just so sweet. And the cost, if really we can't come to a happy place here, it's high. It's disconnect, it's loneliness, it's sadness, it's struggle. It might be divorce. It might be people not talking to you or engaging with you. It's a loss of money, loss of clients, loss of jobs. There's a lot that it costs us to live in judgment, to live in control.
Yes, that's so true. Thank you so much. I love that. So we've got 5 minutes left. Is there anything else that you would like to share, wrap up? Do you have anything that you would like to offer the audience?
I just want to say, what a rich conversation. Like, can we just acknowledge?
Yes,
Beautiful, like, beautiful conversation. And there were things I needed today too, right? There are always things that we each need to hear from the mouths of others, and sometimes from ourselves. We go, oh, that's good advice. I should take that. So it's just it's a lovely thing to be in a conversation where we're just highlighting hey, this is where we're working towards progressing, right? It's not about I'll arrive there and I'll be perfect. And I just love conversations where that is also able to be present, but also Christ was able to be in the conversation, which is so cool. So I love that. In terms of things that are currently happening for each of the women in this group, I do have 2 little free gifts that I would love to just offer. One is, if you go to my website, it's alliewhite.com. There is it's the 3 primary power habits that I think every woman should have in place in her life. So you can go and you can download that. It's just alliewhitecoaching.com. Go check that out. But another beautiful little gift that I put together, and this will drop November 1st. So Elisha and I will talk about how to connect and get that to you. But dropping on November 1st, I have an amazing program coming out. But one of the bonuses from that program, I want to give to this group, just as a little, hey girl, I see you. Like, let me just offer you some support. And it's a self-care model that I really offer primarily to coaches. But it's just a really bougie, yummy training on the 8 primary areas of self-care and what are some models and ideas that can support you. And this is like, it's really cool, science-based. It comes from a woman named Virginia Satir. She's divine. She died years ago. I would have loved to meet her, but you have a lot of output going on right now. I know that a lot of you women are taking care of a lot of things. And so I just wanted to give you something that could put some breath in your lungs, right? Just bring a little light into your life. So I have those 2 free gifts for you that I would just love to offer. And then I have a program coming out November 1st. It's called Life Design. It's the 8 primary foundations that I teach my top tier clients. It's basically, how may I offer you resilience? May I teach you how resilience has been the ultimate ingredient of my success. And these are the 8 primary things I build my life on, so I can go back to the drawing board over and over. And that's dropping November 1st. So that's really fun. So everybody can watch for that
that's
program.
Exciting. Yeah,
it's juicy.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's juicy.
Oh, well, I'm excited for you. That
Lovey.
is so cool. So what I'll do is once this recording is done and I post it, then I will go ahead and include all of your stuff in the post as well. So
you're a babe. You're a babe.
Allie, thank you so much for coming and being a part of this.
Pleasure.
And
thank you for having me.
Giving us so much knowledge and just your presence and just your amazingness. I just love you. So
I love you back so dearly. Yes. Love you, dear.